joining us in this Education Human Resources Committee meeting to discuss our workers' compensation program for the city. So welcome, everybody. So what prompted us being together today, it's time to vote for the PMA contract. As conversations I've had around the city, I am very glad to know that PMA does an excellent job for the city, and we would like to continue to do that. But we certainly do need your help with a few more things. So in conversations with Nader and Donna, Frank, I talked to almost everybody sitting there. We agree, that there's a lot of work to do so that the city has an effective, more comprehensive program to serve better our employees and to be better at submitting claims and making savings for the city rather than not. So this is what brings us together. So with that said, how do we move on? So Donna, can you tell us a little bit, one of the things that it's more worrisome, it's the fact that, so Joe is not here anymore, you're leaving in 2 weeks or so, and then who would be managing the worker compensations program? What's the plan for us to feel more at ease with this?
Please come to the mic. We have to, for the at-home television audience of YouTube.
Okay.
5 that watch this.
Just for those of us that want to understand more what PMA is, just elaborate.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Elaborate a little bit. And then
Okay, so our contract with PMA manages and administers we're self-insured for our workers' compensation program, and they manage our claims, and they offer lots of safety trainings and things like that for our employees. Let me just say that our office, we have a manager of workers compensation and workplace safety. We have a safety officer, and we have 2 safety instructors. Our safety instructor, Stacy Terrell, recently, her last day with us was December 3rd. We are actively looking to fill the safety officer position and the safety instructor position, and we have been recruiting for the manager of workplace safety and workers' compensation.
So point in time, all of these positions are up for grabs. They're open positions, all of them.
Those 3, we have Bob Laporte, who is he's our safety instructor, and he's been with us for a long time, so he is well-versed in workers' compensation and workplace safety.
Okay.
So we have interviewed for the manager of workers' compensation and workplace safety, have not been able to secure that position yet, but we're still recruiting and looking for that person. We have interviews for safety officer and safety instructor, and we're hoping to be able to fill those 2 positions soon. Our workers' compensation program, as you know, we have been adding to the positions in our office so that we can build a stronger program. When Joe was here, we talked about, and we actually have a plan for a citywide safety committee. We have been working with PMA and using their expertise. One of their risk control specialists, Stacy McIntyre, has been and did work with us to help us structure a program. And I think we have a good structure. We just need to get those key positions filled and move on from there for our safety and workers' compensation.
So that is, okay, so that's the employee structure. And based on some of the things from the report, there are committees that need to be structured as well.
Correct.
And I saw in the responses from the city that most of it is in motion, but then, we get hit with a a crisis that nobody was asking for. And so
Correct.
things kind of went stagnant. And so how are we going to, kind of put that back in motion and see what we see?
So I think it's filling some of those key positions. I think we will have the safety officer position when that is filled. I think we reach out to PMA and have them assist us with training and getting people up to speed and help us build that safety committee citywide. And, filling filling the position of the manager and the director to assist in those kinds of things. And there's also going to be, the assistant director will be filled. So I think having those positions and building out that program, we have the plan in place. It's a matter of getting that foundation built and building the structure from there.
So realistically, the percent of probability of filling these positions anytime soon, that's not realistic. So would we consider that PMA maybe could, in continuation with us, with the city under contract, however, could step up and help us at another level while we get all of this set up so that the workers' compensation program, it's not all over the place. We need to centralize how can we do this?
So I'm going to ask Chuck Bolish, he's from PMA, and he can speak to the services offered.
There may be like additional services
Yeah.
that you may be able to provide.
No, I understand. And we've been working with the city since 2013. The district is here as well, too. We've been working with them since 2007. And we've gone through various transitions with our staff counterparts at both locations as well, too. And one of the things that we can offer is, and we did this with the district, and not to put them on the spot, but several years ago, they went through some transitions as well, too. They brought on Jennifer. They had some staff as well, too. And our staff stepped in, and we call it a mentorship program. It's more of a training program providing resources, a sounding board for ideas, and to support that. And the idea behind that was you may not be able to hire a risk manager who's standing on the street who's fully qualified in the job, or
That's
a
the
safety officer.
thing, exactly.
It's a challenging position to fill. But our approach was that identify a person that you believe has got the good interpersonal skills, the understanding of the city's inner workings or some of the workings, and has a willingness to learn and energy. If you can find someone like that, we can work with them and mentor that person and train them up on the basics of the safety training. So the reporting the claims, that's one piece of it, and I think that's under control. It's really, I think, where you're getting to the safety officer position, I think, is an opening, and which the manager as well, too. And we've done this for other clients, not just in New York State, but up and down the East Coast and nationally. So we've stepped into that role to assist.
So when you stepped into that role with the district, how long did you step in for?
It was 6 months, as I recall, and we have an ongoing consulting piece that's in our contract, which is the risk control hours, where Stacy McIntyre has a set number of hours that are allotted to consult with the city and the school district. They're separate, they're pieces in each contract, and that would be an ongoing process as well, too. I think right now it's 37 and a half hours of her consulting time for Stacy, or is allotted for both programs. We can do claims training as well, too. We can do other components. That's done at no really additional
And then
charge.
prevention, safety, all of those,
This-
reentry.
Yeah, when you get into a situation where you're looking to upload like the safety committee, so there's one piece where you want to mentor this new person on board. It's very easy to take the hours that Stacy was working on consulting and doing data analytics and say, hey, for 2022 PMA, we'd like Stacy to work with and mentor that new hire in the safety officer position and help that position. That's almost 40 hours. That's, it's 10 hours a week. It could be expanded if needed, depending on the caliber of the candidate that you bring in. We can do that outside the current agreement as a supplement. I don't believe it needs to be a permanent role, because once you identify that candidate, once they're up to running, we're there to augment, not not do the job for them.
Not to
Does that
cut
make-
you off, but you said not a permanent agreement, so what's the term of the contract?
Term of the contract right now is we're finishing up our year 3 of a 5-year agreement. So it's year 3 with 2 one-year options. So we've got 2 full option years that are coming up. In each one of those contracts, there is hours that are allotted for risk control, use or lose during those years. So those services are available. Again, it would really depend upon the caliber of the candidate that you come in. You know, are they starting from scratch, or do they already come with a base set of facts? Then we know how much time we need to spend with that person to get them up to speed, and then to support them going forward.
So this question probably will be for Donna, but you can stay there. Or maybe Frank, I'm not sure. So who's doing the hiring? I mean, in terms of who's going to be selecting this, making the selection of these employees that we so need?
So we'll have a committee of folks that will.
Oh, there is a committee.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll have a committee of folks that will interview. Donna we're still looking for some candidates. We've lost a couple candidates for
I know.
the risk manager, as Chuck said. It's a tough one to fill. We took a different tactic this time. We kind of went the route that Chuck described the first time with Joe, which was someone who wasn't directly experienced but could work under Chuck's mentorship and Stacy's mentorship and get up to speed. We went the other route since Joe left. We've been looking to recruit a more experienced risk manager that could hit the ground running. We're kind of coming up dry there, so we'll probably go the other route and go back to hiring somebody, whether internally or externally, who can grow into the position, but hire some very strong officers underneath that manager who can do some of the day-to-day operational work.
Okay.
What are the challenges that you lost these people? What were the challenges?
So residency in one case, and in the other case, it was salary and kind of not sure that they wanted to move from manufacturing into a municipal environment.
Are we competent in terms of salary when it comes to this position?
We're close to competitive. Could
we are.
Could we use another $10,000 to $15,000? Probably.
That's how far off we are.
Yeah, probably. But in the
That's a
one
lot.
case, we finally came to salary, but the residency ended up being the deal breaker. So.
Now, Frank, just to follow up on that, and I have other question as well. To follow up on the question of the salary, that there's a difference of $10,000 to $15,000, right, compared to maybe other risk management organization and yada yada, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, cities seem to have quite a comprehensive benefit, in terms of, now, if you take the salary to that point, how does the benefit equate to that as well?
It's a really good question. And the total compensation package, we feel, is pretty competitive when you put the benefits in there. But it's tough. It's so individual to every single candidate, counselor. Some candidates say, well, my spouse has health insurance, or the cost of, because the market is so crazy in real estate, you can't pay me enough or give me enough in benefits to, for me to, we're losing any number of professional managers this year because of the real estate market and because they have a spouse who already has benefits. That said, the short answer to your question is our benefits are exceedingly competitive. Candidates don't always see that total remuneration as we would like them to.
Now, as an entity, when people come in saying that my husband or my significant other has a health insurance, have we ever sit down and recalculate if they're not taking insurance here, have we ever looked at taking that benefit money and, making up for the salary?
So we probably should do that more aggressively. The reality is very few of our employees pay anything close to the actual premium or premium equivalent. So that's a tactic that is often used in where you have an indemnity plan, where your cost of health benefits are very specific and usually very high and tied to an individual. But because we own and manage our own plan, that savings is a little more nebulous. But it's a good idea and one we should probably be more aggressive
Yeah,
about.
because I'm thinking, yes, with that, it probably make more sense
Yeah.
to equate that to the market rate.
Sure.
And be able to take that and be able to level the salary level.
In general,
Yeah,
because the employment market is as crazy as it is right now, we're discovering that we are a little bit behind the eight ball. You know, everybody's having difficulty recruiting. Everybody's experiencing the same kind of resignations and turnover at this kind of middle management, if you will, level. It's a little bit exacerbated in our case, once we have a vacancy, trying to find folks who are interested. But we need to be, in short, we need to be much more proactive in the way we recruit if we're going to survive this market.
That's why I thought that realistically, this is, we will need some help.
So, absolutely, Counselor. I think, talking to PMA, we've got the consulting hours built in, talking to PMA about expanding those hours, I think is a great idea. You and I had a good conversation about that last evening. I think we need to relook at who we're, again, do we want to find an experienced risk manager? It'd be great. I just don't think it's probably realistic as we've seen in the market. Donna, I don't know if Donna agrees or disagrees with that, but I think using PMA to support a less experienced hire who can grow into the job is probably the route we should take.
no, Frank, no, continue. Yeah. No, it's okay. Sorry. With that, have we ever thought, and this is somebody with no risk management experience asking a question, have we ever thought of safety officer, safety officer, safety instructor? Have we ever thought of contracting all that out instead of us doing them?
Absolutely, particularly instruction. Donna and I had that conversation last week.
Okay.
I used to do that in some previous positions that I held. We would contract those kinds of things out. There's a few places that do it. Again, they're tough to get right now because everybody's doing the same thing. So their dance card is full. But we absolutely think if we need to scale up more quickly than we're able to hire up, because the instructor position just opened. So if we need to scale up sooner than we can hire up, we will outsource. But we have a line on an internal candidate who we feel really good about and think that we may be able to get the safety instructor position filled very quickly.
I'm asking that, Frank, because we may promote internally,
Yeah.
but at the same time, just like with the other candidate, we may eventually have to face that problem again, because with experience of this individual with the city, they come here, you had no experience, they spend a year here with the city, they become valuable, and then they gotta go again.
No question.
So this is a situation where you will have to face again, even if you do internal promotion, right? So overall, in a long-term, having a long-term thought and long-term insight, don't you think it would be actually safe to go to that direction completely rather than,
Yeah, yes, I think you're right. Yep.
yeah, okay.
Are these civil service positions?
Yes.
And are they bound by union rules?
No, none of them are union. No.
And last question, how long have these positions been open, Frank?
The risk manager position is now, are we up to 6 months?
6 months.
How long has the manager position been open? Yeah, maybe not quite 6 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm asking that,
As I say, we had a couple on the hook and they got away.
and I'm asking that because I want to see what has been the backlog of the work, considering that there has been open that long.
It's a great question, and I think it goes to the core of why we're here. We need to renew PMA's contract because with their help, there isn't much of a backlog. Now, where the deficiency is we're not being as aggressive in our training and as aggressive and proactive in some of our revision and upgrades of our policies. But in terms of backlog, these folks keep us right on track, which is why we're nervous about not having them in our on our team, because they're absolutely critical to the way we do business.
Yeah, and I think Frank, not for nothing, I think when you have a great relationship, like I haven't had experience with PMA, but it seemed like there's this like seamless flow of great working relationship. I think for us, it's up to us to take advantage of that relationship and capitalize on it by actually making sure that, looking at what more they could do for us.
No question.
And take advantage of that. And it seemed like, as folks that look at our city money, it seemed like a good direction to go into. So I'd be really interested to see as you explore more option go into this direction.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what we've talked about, Counselor, is getting the current contract renewed and then looking at those consulting hours, and can we come back to you after the first of the year and say, okay, for the foreseeable future, we think we need to, expand those number of hours, talk to Chuck and his team about what they're able to add on, and then just expand the contract. But to keep that base contract in place so that our day-to-day is
So
not
the contract
jeopardized.
was never in question, by the way.
I'm sorry?
The contract was never questionable. It's, we just wanted to see how we could,
Absolutely.
maximize
Yeah.
on the things they have to
Yeah,
offer. Yeah.
PMA is going to be critical. And you didn't ask this question, but I'll answer it anyways. There's a ton of internal conversation and maybe some pressure about expanding workers' comp in the public safety area and in being more aggressive about the way we manage 207, both in police and fire. And we're going to absolutely need our colleagues at PMA to hold our hand through that, because that's a pathway that is going to be really difficult for us to traverse without their expertise.
So let me ask you this: in reading this audit, across it, there seems to be like a lack of culture within the administration when it comes to workers' comp. Is part of the training would include, some of that to better those relationships?
Yeah. Here, Donna.
So I think overall, we need to change the safety culture in the workforce, and we need to find, I think we need to invest in people that are going to do that, and people, as Frank alluded to, we have candidates that we want to bring in that already have bought into the city and have that, safety priority, and want to expand that with the people in the safety group, and also our employees that are out in the field. We need to have more of a hands-on and change the culture of the people that are working, like their safety. They need to also buy into that. Their safety is a priority for not just us as the employer, for them. So how do we do that together? And we need the key players to help us. And that's one of the key things a safety committee will do, is we have people that are actually working in the field on that committee. And
So who would be in the safety committee? People from all departments? How does that work
People from all
out?
departments, we identified the positions already. So it's labor class as well as management on that committee. And it's really people that are working, they're the ones that can come up with the best solutions often. So that's why it's important to have people on that committee that, know what the work entails. So that, I think, is part of changing that safety culture amongst our employees. Okay.
And I think, Donna, this point just bleed into a larger problem that we have, of safety, you know, accidents and all of these things. That, you know, when you look at it, it's continue to cost us money as a city.
It does. We see, you know, I think having a focus, you know, having a manager, a safety officer that has that focus, that can see the trends. That's what PMA helps us with, picking up on those trends so that we can identify what is repeatedly happening and how can we, as an employer, address that. And then getting that word out through the safety committee, through the people out in the field, our instructors, making sure they're doing those trainings. That I think is what we really need to have. And we need to have a prevention attitude rather than reactive to the accidents. Okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So I have one more question.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with what you were just saying. It goes back to the unions and their participation in all of this. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why is there such a challenge here to kind of work together?
So I actually think we have made some progress with working with the unions. Margaret Chaika is our employee relations officer, and, you know, I think we've developed a better relationship with our union officers and working with them. And, you know, we're working with them on our ARC program and, you know, making sure that we have the right people at the table for that. But I think we are making progress with that. It's a trust thing, so, you know, it takes a while to build back trust, and that's what we're trying to do. So, I mean, to me, I think we have been making progress with our unions, and trying to be fair, and I think they see that, so. Okay.
Just a slightly different question, but somewhat in the topic, Donna. How much of effort do we put into training, especially the middle managers? You know, I know that there's, you know, those EPA stuff. Is it EPA? Right.
Oh, the EAP?
Supervision and
Yep.
and all of that.
Yep.
But I'm asking this because training managers in the right way help reduce this, because as they continue to enforce the tasks that need to be done by the employees, you know, continue to push for safety and stuff like that. How much training do we put into those middle managers as opposed to just the generic training that I see happen?
So I think that's the reason why we expanded the safety instructor, to make sure we have 2 safety instructors. And similarly to what we did with our personnel specialists, we have personnel specialists that are assigned to the department, so the department gets that one-on-one. They know who they have to contact, and that's the direction we're going in with the safety instructors. We added a second safety instructor so that we can split that, you know, each safety instructor will have a department that they're responsible for, and they'll be able to work directly with our superintendents, who are the middle managers, and making sure that the crew leaders are also trained and well aware of what is needed. They can focus more if they have, you know, we had one instructor that was doing it citywide, so we have the 2 instructors and the safety officer, and then the manager. So I think the goal is to have our instructors focus directly on the departments, and then obviously cross-trained and have a safety officer overseeing that. We can, as Frank already said, we can look to whether we want to contract that out more, or if we want to just have PMA offer more of their services. Those are things that can be explored as well.
Who was the safety instructor in DPW? You said you had 2?
So we had 2. Stacy Terrell was the second one. She was at DPW, but she just left. Her last day with us was December 3rd. And Bob Laporte is the other safety instructor.
Okay, because I know that the complaints that I get the most are from, about the crew leaders. So I think we need to focus a lot on the crew leaders with the training. That's where the issue comes in.
Yep, I think I hear the same complaints, yep.
Okay. Then, another aspect of the program that, seems to be all across this report as well is it's the claims and, the fact that we can do a better job submitting them on time so that we don't have to pay more, because every time it's late, we do pay more money, right? Is that how this goes?
That's correct. I'm going to let Chuck talk to that because I think we have done a really good job in improving our timeliness.
Okay.
So, Chuck, yeah, thank you.
So, a general risk management practice is, the quicker the claim gets in, the better the outcome's going to be. That's not 100%. I mean, you could have a claim that's reported late, that you could have a great
It will
outcome on.
happen,
You could have a claim that's reported timely, and it's a catastrophic loss. So but in general, our best practice is within 0 to 3 days. So what we saw over with the focus, and it's a constant item that we stress as well too, with any one of our clients, it just doesn't happen overnight. So there has to be departments that have to abide by it. The employees have to abide by it. And it's very rarely is the delay is in the centralized office that reports the claims to us. It's a lot of times it's the field getting it in. So it's a constant focus. There's been a lot of effort by the city, I know, to address that concern. But it's constant because you've got someone who's been reporting the claims very well in DPW or highway, and that person retires or leaves. And then you've got to start all over again from that standpoint. So it's a constant area of focus. It's the first recommendation that we have with any of our customers, whether they're reporting them within 1 day or reporting within 10 days in any one of our stewardship meetings. We always strive to say we can always do better. And I think the city realized that, and they put the effort in to make that happen. But it's a constant battle with turnover and transition and challenges. But I think the city fully is in support of getting those claims in quicker to PMA, and they've seen improvements on that as well too.
Mm-hmm. So, Nadar, can I ask you a question? So, when we talked about claims, you mentioned that we're paying, I don't know if, I don't want to say 50%, I don't even know how much more, but right now it's somewhere around $4 million plus in a year. And if we did a better submission of claims in time, then how would that, can you talk a little bit about that?
So in the audit, what we discovered, and as Chuck has mentioned and as Donna mentioned, the city, when we started looking at the overall the workers' comp risk management program, we saw various departments delayed in filing their claims. One of the worst ones was the police department. Part of the problem that exists there is they have a different set of rules on most everything, as the administrators in this room would probably agree on. So changing the culture again is the key to that, is understanding that this risk management program is here for the benefit and the well-being of the employees. It's not something the administration necessarily wants to spend the money on in terms of claims. They want people to be safe and healthy. And so all the conversation you're talking about here is that we need to get everybody involved, the unions, the crew leaders. There has to be an active, fluid conversation constantly about what this program is here for and how we can cut the cost and have good working conditions for everybody. So what we noticed, again, to reiterate it, was that there were different departments not filing these claims in a timely basis. And as Chuck said, the sooner you get these in, generally speaking, the quicker the turnaround is and you get somebody back to work. And so any delay that we had a range of people that were getting it in 3 days, up to in some cases, 15 to 20 days. In not filing. So that discrepancy caused us to say if we were, as a city, could get these claims in on a 0 to 3 days basis, that would reduce our overall cost significantly. That's the point that we were trying to make about that.
There's no timeline on the claim getting turned in?
I'm sorry,
There's no
President.
time frame for the claim to be turned in, so it's just.
0 to 3 days.
There's not a requirement posted or necessarily that you have to meet it by a certain deadline, but just think about it. When an accident occurs, if somebody slips off, one of the Santa people slips off the truck and puts a claim in right away, and somebody then from their crew leader can go and check and say, all right, this person slipped off the truck and twisted their ankle in the hole on where I live, on Euclid Avenue. Well, does somebody look at that to see if that's occurred? Number one, did that happen? Did this claim get put in right away? And what's the making sure that this employee feels that the city is addressing this issue right away so that they're feeling like they're cared for? It isn't somebody who's just a number. So the importance of doing it immediately and doing the investigation immediately have a bearing on if this claim isn't put in properly or right away and time elapses, then this person feels like, well, nobody's paying attention to it. Then they go to their own doctor, they get their own lawyer, and everything starts to compound from there, and it's more costly to the city. So, you know, what you've all been discussing so far, and Frank and I had some conversations about it when we were doing the audit. And I can't stress enough, this is about the culture. It's the culture, and Jennifer's here, she can tell you about the school district and what the approach that they took with it. We as a city just don't seem to have that culture. I'm not being judgmental, I'm not being critical, I'm saying it's an opportunity. That's where the change will occur. That's what will save us money. More importantly, that will save our employees from getting injured.
So, which for me, I want to push that a little further. Frank, we have identified that we are being affected by culture. It's costing us money. It's costing us great employees. It's costing us all of this. What are we doing about it?
Well, I think we're doing a number of things, but we
Okay.
haven't been successful yet. But we're certainly addressing it. As the auditor points out, there's ample opportunities, and as Donna pointed out, it's moving from being a reactive culture to a proactive culture. And culture change is difficult. We're talking about, frankly, decades of not spending a lot of time on this, to the point where the safety and risk management function had been essentially dismantled, and we're trying to rebuild it. So,
I get that, Frank. I think, when did we realize that cultural is a problem here? Was within the administration been here 5 years,
I think-
going to 5 years.
I think that,
Right.
the mayor, my recollection is that one of the first conversations I had with the mayor when I came in was that this was something that we needed to look at. It was on our list of items that we hoped that the auditor would take a look at, because there's only so much bandwidth, and the auditor, I think, was really helpful to us in helping us lay out a roadmap. We hired the first manager of safety and risk management in a few years at least. And then, as Councilor Paniagua put it, the pandemic hit, and his entire focus, full-time focus, became on COVID-19. So we're just getting back to it now. That's not an excuse, it's just a reason. Factually, we just didn't have the bandwidth, but we're going to rebuild the team and do it, but we're going to need some interim help, no question.
And I think we need to remember that this is not something that happened with this administration. This has been lagging for years and years and years.
Right,
And
that-
many prior administrations, just trying to handle it now.
And as the
I
auditor
get
put
that.
it.
I get that because I understand that. And the reason I'm asking this, I know culture can build or break organizations. You know, it can definitely do that. And for me, I'm saying that because, listening to employees that I know in DPW, and which bring me to the point that when employees leave here, besides salary itself, have we ever looked at why they're leaving? Right? Have we ever do a thorough exit interview and to continually push for that, to really iron out why people are leaving? Because sometimes, we know, all of you know this, that people don't work for organizations, people work for people. And if there's an an organization and culture within an organization that people continue to enforce and it continue to push people away, right? So for us, it's great that you have discovered that this is happening. But at the same time, I think we need to go a little step further to really look at this. And it's, as you said, culture is there, it's gonna be long, and maybe you gotta look at the management seriously, because we have seen this. DPW is huge in this. We have heard this. Everybody here knows that. And it continue to happen. That when you look at that, it doesn't become a problem of people on the ground. It becomes a leadership problem. You know, it becomes a leadership problem, Frank, and I'm glad you noticed that, and everyone noticed it, and they're trying to do all they can, but we got to do more. And the reason I sound so urgent is that we are here to protect taxpayers in any way possible. Okay?
All very important
Part
points.
of it being to make sure that we save the money. You know, and this right here, it's like carrying a container with a hole at the bottom with taxpayers' money. They're leaving, and we are not doing that. And I think we should be urgent about it, making sure we save the money. And part of that is making sure that we keep great employees, by making sure that we put in mechanisms that continue to enforce that, and making sure that this culture that we are talking about here, we got to do something about it quickly, because we are losing great people, and money cannot buy great people.
Can't
We know
argue with
that.
Yep, can't argue with it.
You know.
It just doesn't happen that quick. It's a process, that's progress.
I will say,
Yeah.
Yeah, please come to the mic now.
I just want to say that is something that this administration and our office has recognized, and we have done and taken lots of steps at DPW, especially. I don't know if you know Bianca Tierney, but she is there once a week. She talks to the employees. We want to hear from the employees, and we want to address the issues that are happening. So, Counselor, you bring up very good points. I think those are things that we are actively trying to address. And, you know, we want employees, we want to hear what's going on. And having Bianca out there on a weekly basis, we hear more that we are working with the union leadership. We are working with the department head and the deputy commissioners out there. We're working with the superintendents. We're trying to address those things because we want our employees to be happy while they're working here. We want to support our employees at all levels. So I do think that we're making progress, and, you know, it's going to just keep that momentum going and making progress across the board. Not just with our safety culture, but just in general with making sure people are heard and that we are addressing issues as they come. Margaret is another one that has been very, very involved with our employees and the issues that are happening and addressing them when they occur. So
let me ask you this, Donna. So everybody across the board, they're being trained, correct? Or we want to train them? Crew leaders, superintendents, deputy commissioners, commissioners across the board, correct?
that we're doing training with them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it once a year or more than once?
So attendance at our trainings that are offered is always an issue. I know when we went to WebEx, we had a lot more people that attended, but not our labor class workers, a lot of our 400 workers. WebEx is not a thing that they do. So we're still working on that. How do we get more participation? How do we reach the employees?
Is this not mandatory?
So some of them are mandatory, yes. Some of the things are, harassment trainings, diversity training, our sexual harassment trainings. Those are mandatory. That's a huge effort, and that's a once-a-year thing. So we want to do trainings more often, more frequently, and with the pandemic, doing in-person trainings in a large group setting, very difficult to do. So
Maybe if we offer them, if we feed them, they will come.
Feed them. That's,
Maybe just for argument's sake, Donna,
What's
because
that?
there's so many different entities in our structure.
Yeah.
And everybody hears things differently from a different source.
Yes.
So maybe we should look into different training partners for different sections of our areas.
yes, that's something we can do.
In conversation yesterday with Mark Spatafor,
Right.
he was telling me that Dr. Michael Lax
Right.
and Jeanette Sackler or Seckler, I'm not really, Seckler, they do these trainings as well.
They're
And
from Sinkosh.
yes, and then they would be willing to give us a hand if we reach out to them.
Okay, there are definitely a lot of different places that do those kinds of trainings, but if you want to send the name to myself and
Oh, absolutely.
Frank and Margaret, we
Yes.
will certainly look into that.
Yes, yeah. Oh, go ahead, yes, sorry, yes.
So when we talk about changing the culture, that seems up here. But the reality of the situation is we have precedent take our Sinai workers. What do? They come to work at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, and they want to be done by noontime so that they can go to another job at 1 o'clock so that they can have a decent income to live on. So what happens? I had a perfect example of that this morning at my own house. They're rushing to the point where somebody is going to have an accident. Something's going to happen. So the administration, and whether it's the training or having the right leadership and engaging the unions in those discussions is imperative, because part of the problem that we have is that we already have precedent. And so with people rushing and they're getting hurt, and if you look at the audit report, as I'm sure you did, DPW is a prime source over and over and over again.
The highest.
PMA has identified it historically, and yet we continue to offer that opportunity for people to come in at 6 or 7 in the morning and leave by noontime. And you see them if you drive around in the city at any particular day and see what's going on, as I do, you'll see people rushing and slipping and grabbing and the trucks moving. So, as Frank pointed out, changing the culture is a big, big job. It isn't just attitudinal. It's not racial. It may be some of that too. But the reality is what have we created ourselves that needs to be addressed? That's part of the concern that I have.
And I think, Auditor, I think you make sense. You make sense, right? And I
Can you
think
put that in writing? Some people don't think I ever make sense. When I was on the council, I used to be so confused. Yeah. Thank you, Counselor. I didn't mean to be.
You make sense in a sense that we can be our own hurdle, you know, in how we enforce, in how we, you know, just and how we supervise in general, right?
Yes.
And for us, maybe sometime, you know, having people come in for 6 hours, you know, and having many of them at once, maybe that may not be something we should continue to do, you know, because more doesn't always mean better, right? Do we create more longer hours, 8 hours for these employees and have few of them rather than hiring all these people that for a short period of time? I don't know. Right?
That's my point. This is a complex problem that needs a comprehensive approach. It isn't just one particular thing or hiring somebody. Those things will help. But this is a complex problem that the city, and based on the stewardship report that PMA provided in September, the trend that we're on, we've been spending around $4.2 million. They're forecasting from the 2 months that they did, July and August, that they reported out in September, we could be looking at the cost of up to $7.2 million. So it's a complex problem that needs a comprehensive approach.
Is that factoring in the increase of the?
The indemnity? Yes, that's another area that's out of our control. The state controls what the indemnity rate's going to be. If you look at history, which I love, you see the increase has gone from $100 up $400 maximum to almost $1,100, right? And so that's another issue. So there are, as I said, it's a complex problem that needs a comprehensive approach. And Frank is right. Even before I took office, I had a conversation with he and the mayor, and that was on my list and on their list at the same time, because this is a big issue for us as a city. So I appreciate you all looking at this. Yes, President.
And I want to say, you know, I understand the complexity of it. You know, when this administration came, how much of that discussion was there? Because there's a difference between having this discussion now versus having the discussion all the time and we do nothing about it because it's complex. You see where I'm going with this? How much discussion did we have prior to making this decision now that we got to do something? You know, because that will allow somebody like me to have sympathy and be able to understand something is being done. Because when you continue to just talk, and do nothing, that's not an excuse of saying that a subject matter is complex. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And
Yeah.
but in response to that, if I may, I'm a guy that doesn't tend to look back. I try to look forward. And I'm encouraged by the administration's response to our audit. I'm encouraged that there's a recognition that we need to take a more comprehensive approach to this. I think they're trying to do that, and we all need to participate in that. Our commissioners, as you pointed out, President, our commissioners, our superintendents, our crew leaders, everybody has to participate in this. This is an important piece that we all need to do. And so I know, you know, the problem, I used to work at Burger King, and the owner used to come and he'd say, that dandelion didn't grow overnight. And I remember that from 30 years ago. The dandelion didn't grow overnight. The problem that we have didn't grow overnight. It's been there systemically for a long time. And now we're really challenged as a city and financially and culturally and people-wise to be able to change it. But I believe we can do it with the right approach, with the energy, as somebody mentioned here before.
So we have Suzanne. Oh, you have one more
I
question.
have one more question. I want to ask this question because, as I think the counselors have alluded to, we're the ones that see what comes in and what has to get paid out. What I want to know is this. We know that we've had quite a few accidents, okay? When that happens, are those folks retrained in some area? Or no? Okay, I'm just gonna take an old case. It's old, so I'm not giving away nothing. When the DPW truck drug the girl down Erie Boulevard, okay? Was that driver required to go through training?
So, yes, that is part of our accident review committee. And that committee looks at every accident like that, and they will, number one, make recommendations if it's gross negligence, if there's discipline warranted, and if training is warranted. So yes, those are all looked at in the ARC committee.
Okay, so what does the training consist of? Do you know?
So that would be something that either the safety instructor or the safety officer at the time would have suggested and implemented.
Okay.
So, and I will say we have our fleet manager who's very, very focused on safety and training, and we are looking at filling our safety instructor with someone that has a CDL so that we can do more one-on-one training with our employees so that when things happen, we're taking more of a preventative approach, and that's why we've added those positions so that we can focus on that prevention and not, be reactive and having to discipline. And we're trying to prevent those kinds of accidents.
Right.
And do those trainings before those things happen. Not to say you can prevent every accident, but we certainly know we can do a better job at with training and prevention.
So in those cases, when the training takes place, HR is involved, correct? Or do you
Well-
know about it?
So now, all of the safety positions are in HR, so yes.
Okay, so, I mean, is there any, I'm not talking about from 50 years ago.
Yep.
So I would like to know from moving forward, is it a way that we can know about the training part of it? Because we're the ones that have to get the information to say yay or nay, and we don't get that information.
Okay.
Have they been sent to training?
So are you talking about from the liability aspect of that? So, actually, Todd and I had a conversation about that. Todd Long and Bob Laporte and I had a conversation about that a couple weeks ago, and trying to tie in that training, and Rich DeVesti and our office are looking at picking the right person and having the right trainings. Rich DeVesti is going to be more involved in overseeing those as well.
I know, because I know law probably gets sick of us when they come in there, because that's the first thing we ask them.
Sure.
Have they been sent back for training?
So I think that's the bigger picture that we're trying to take a focus on, not just the things that happen that we see across our desk, but what happens in law, what happens, how can we, so that is the bigger picture that we are focusing on, or trying to focus on, and
Okay.
being more direct and responding to those kinds of things.
Okay.
Speaking of liability, is there something somewhere within your control that look at how many times an employee continue to cost city money and you have to continue to reinvest training? How do we have that data anywhere to see that, how that is?
So I think when we have the ARC review committee meetings, those are the things that are being looked at. What is the past history for this employee?
And how has it been with the union, especially when the city come to a conclusion that this is time to part way maybe with an employee? How hard has it been to try to convince the union to do it?
So I will say, in a union environment, you have, they're there, they're going to fight for that employee to keep that employee's job. It's always a struggle, but we have to make sure that that we have documentation of the progression and the steps that we've taken, so that if we're getting to a point where it's termination, we can show that we have done everything we can or could to prevent that outcome. So it is not, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is something that that's another thing that we've done a lot of training with our department heads and our managers, to make sure there's documentation and follow-up, so that if we're going to be disciplining, because if it's not documented,